Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are enjoying the content channel as of late. Excuse me, it's like the third time that I'm attempting to record this. Just cat's being restless right now. And just getting late. So hopefully this will be the one. This will be the take. But um, but yeah, we are at the end of the year, guys. We are very close to 2026. We're literally, when this video comes out, literally a day or two away. So this year has officially wrapped, and I figured just for I was actually inspired by watching a video, not related to film, but kind of in relation to like a year to like recap. I figured just to look back at this year and looking at some of the biggest moments that happened this year in regards to film. So we're going to be looking at specific news stories, things that, were very key, when it came to this year. And then we'll see how, you know, this next year is going to follow. Will things change? Will things stay the same? Let's look at it. Um, Now, generally, as this year has gone, it's been rough. It's not been the best year film wise. Some people have been saying it's a disappointment, as expected. Outlets have been trying to shower the positives and not acknowledge as much of the negatives, kind of poorly representing things, in my opinion, especially because they're framing it in certain ways. But I mean, that's just the journalists. Um, but we're going to look at just specific news events and seeing, what was the biggest things that happened in 2025. And there was definitely some big stuff, especially as we got towards the end of the year. But we're going to do this also in chronological order, so we're not just going to do this randomly. So when I talk about the first event, this is the first major thing that happened, and then so on and so on. So let's get into it. So the first really big thing that happened this year, and you may think, oh, it's the obvious, but it's actually not. The first major thing that really happened this year actually revolved around Emilia Perez. If you guys remember, at the Oscars this year, we did a whole video about this, and at the end of this video, actually, I will also be linking in my description box. I will be linking all of the videos because I've actually have talked about all these subjects as well. I think I have. Yeah, I've talked about all these subjects in videos. So if you want to see a more thorough, discussion about these things, I have videos related to them all that I will be leaving in the description box, just in case you want to see more thorough, more meaty thoughts on these subjects. But Amelia Perez started off the year with a bit of a storm because the Oscars this past Oscars handed out the most nominations to this film. And if you're familiar with the film itself was already shrouded with controversy, and mainly in the political scene, and the framework of the film as well was people took issue with. And Unanimously, regardless political or not, people didn't seem to really love the film. So, critics and audiences seem to have not really loved it that much. So, what it really highlighted was that there was an inside job happening with this film, and there was an agenda at play. And I talked a lot about it, and it highlighted twofold. One of which was the Oscars' efforts to diversify everything, which I don't like the spirit of that. I prefer films or prefer anything to be picked on the merit of its own strength, not necessarily because it stars specific people or has people working in those vicinities. No, I don't agree with that at all. But that was the first major thing that happened to me because it just it just really set the it was like really this is how things are going to go now, especially with the Oscars. Just like I've already written off the Oscars also for many years now, just because I don't care for award stuff. It just doesn't really interest me anymore. um it's just a big ego contest. It's a popularity contest also. So And in this case, that spirit is still there, except it was more politically motivated than anything else. And most everybody knows it. And then also there was, of course, also things that came out about the actress, the lead actress, for picture here. Certain comments that she had made, I guess, in the political scene that Hollywood did not take kind to. So much so that Netflix, the people who are behind this film, didn't even give her the. We're actually considering not flying her out to the awards ceremony, which they eventually did because legally they have to. It was a requirement within her contract, or I think it was something within her contract to say that you have to do this stuff. Um, because they did a big campaign, big promotion, and then all of a sudden, with these comments that came out, all of a sudden, all of that for her specifically was completely taken away, and all the momentum, then all that, all the vanity. Oh my God! Like, look at all the nominations. We're gonna shower it. And then we went to the award show, and then I think like one of those awards was handed out to this film, and it was just like, yeah, it just really really highlighted the political aspirations that went behind this and the motivations that were purely for the movie and not judging it on the movie itself, and that's really unfortunate. But we're not stopping there because we're front loaded actually this year with a lot of political discussions because yeah, let's get into it. Uh, so I did a few videos on this, so it's not like this is the first time I'm addressing this, but obviously, if we're going to talk about film at the start of this year, we have to talk about the tariffs a little bit because the tariffs played a huge part, are playing a huge part. Still, we're still seeing the effects of the tariffs. I still see the effects on the entertainment side. I just watched a video relating to a toy channel who've now seen prices gone up startlingly have gone up. Uh, and I'm pretty sure that we'll see effects from this on the film front in a few, maybe next year or so. We'll see. Um, but yeah, that definitely set a specific kind of tone when it came to certain things that could happen in production. This was Trump's attempt to try to rein in, American consumers back into their own soil and not relying upon the foreign market. And I don't know the exact percentages that are occurring now. I know that during the summer they were extremely high, or at least like towards before the summer, actually, it was extremely high. We're like past 100%. But now I think they've gone down like astronomically because, well, yeah, one word, China. China is uh, China is not as reliant on us as much as we are to them. So yeah, so it was going to be a losing battle regardless, and um, you know it's it's just not realistic. It just doesn't. And also it's a tax on us at the end of the day. Even if there is ideas there that might have, in theory, be interesting, it just is not realistic when you know our relationship to China. So, but on the film front, this is potentially going to affect a lot of things. It was trying to force productions to stay in LA, which people were leaving LA for a very specific reason because it's too expensive. And other places are giving uh, much lower rates than whatever LA was offering. So it was just very backwards thinking, and it did more harm than actual good when it was all said and done. And then going from one political conversation to the next, we have to talk about Snow White. Um, Snow White was, I would say, of probably all the movies that came out this year, I feel like this one probably had the most discussion to it, mainly because this is a conversation that was built up for years. If you know your history revolving the film, it had a year-long delay because of a lot of comments that were being made at the time. I think it was directed towards the actress or other things. I forget what the reason was. Or it was also their way of covering, I think, just because they were having to do reshoots because people took issues with the dwarfs. Like I said, I have a video about all this stuff in the comments that you guys can see. But I bring this up because we hear a lot of people bring up political uh, discussions, how it affects the box office, how it affects certain films. A lot of that woke, stuff that people talk about, which you know, it depends on the how people take to it, I guess. But in the case of Snow White, it unfortunately was the dictation of the entire movie. It took precedent, and because of that, a lot of people just decided to just not see this at all, and it's become one of Disney's biggest misfires, and I think in a while. Um, and it's really unfortunate, because some people may say, "Oh, well, regardless, the film was going to flop." I don't think so. I think that, well, on one level, yes, because of how enormous the production had gotten. The costs surrounding it were just ridiculous. Um, and delaying the film a year because of comments and stuff like that, I thought was idiotic. It's like, just move on. Yes, deal with it in the press. Find ways to move around, but don't, you know, like, I don't like when the internet feeds into the filmmaking process. I would prefer to see what the filmmaker intended to make and not have us dictate things. Unless it's like people are getting hurt, or things are not going fairly for some people. Okay, fine. But because of certain political discussions or whatever, changes were made in Snow White, and you can tell if you know your history, they're just like trying to merge two different kinds of productions together. Um, it just became a big mess, and I feel really bad for the actress because I don't think she deserved a lot of the hate that she was getting. I understand that where people were coming from because she herself was subjecting herself to that controversy or to those discussions because of, well, certain comments that she made about Trump on election night, or I think some at one point near the election, I forgot when, but and of course, her I wouldn't say her displeasure. I don't know what the proper word would be. Her dislike of the original film, which I never understood why that's a huge issue. I get in a promotional sense why that's an issue, but she's allowed to have an opinion. She's allowed to feel how she feels. So I never understand why that's a big deal. But this film was just subjected to just a whole lot of just political crap, and some of it was warranted just because of just what they decided to do. With the original intentions with the dwarfs, it's like, you're kind of asking for it in some regard. um, it's just, it was just a big mess, and I think Disney, and it's right, even so, Disney, when this film came out, made decisions that they would backtrack from because of just distance from the movie. They, remember, they canceled the Tangled film, and then they canceled another film, and then they decided, oh no, we'll do Tangled again. But I think that was because Scarlett Johansson decided to hop on, and that's what brought it back to life. But the point being is that because of what Snow White did, Disney had to change make some decisions. It wasn't just because of this isolated incident. It was just because this did so poorly that anything beyond that had to be reconsidered. So it's just all around a big mess, and like I said, I really feel bad for the actress. I haven't heard her name ever since this film. I've heard she's done plays, which I think is, when an actor is, or a established actor is doing plays, that means one of two things: either they don't have work, or they're not getting work. So yeah, so I really feel bad. The film itself is not good. It's not a good film, but I just feel that the conversations around it were very unfortunate, um, and was one of the rare showcases of political discussions actually dictating the success of a movie. Now, this next one, is kind of piggybacking off from last year, but it still is ongoing, and I still believe because of just just because of how much has been uncovered and being talked about, I think it's still worth bringing up that this legal battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni is still going on, and I'm still kind of surprised that it's still going on. And it is unfortunate to see where it has gone, especially because I've covered a lot about it. I stopped talking about it just because it just devolved into just she said, he said, and there's a lack of proof or just a lack of real concrete evidence. And I just also frankly got bored just because it's like I'd rather just get a firm ruling and then determine based on that and based on the information that is collected at that time to then see where I feel on this. But yeah, I still feel the same, even if it's not looking good for Baldoni. At this point, it seems like Blake Lively is going to come out fine. And that might just because of just the power that she has. But if you know anything about this case, you know that Blake Lively is not the clean one here. Not saying Baldoni himself is a clean figure either, but from what I have known about this case, it is not in the best interest for Blake Lively primarily. She was not treating Baldoni fairly on the set of the events of us, as far as I remember. She was being demanding. She was being controlling. Like, she was not being the best partner, and, she ultimately got her say because this is her cut of the movie. Remember, It Ends with Us, the movie that you saw, was not the director's cut. It was actually her cut because, well, of her status and because of who's also she's married to. Which that was also a part of it as well. I guess Ryan Reynolds came in and I guess wrote a scene, like Ghost wrote a scene supposedly, um, and a whole bunch of like things that Baldoni has released, videos as well as messages, audio clips. There's a lot of stuff that's going against her, and it's not to say that Baldoni's squeaky clean. I'm pretty sure that if I were to look into this, that there are some things that are not in his best interest either. But yeah, this is just, it's not a good look for any of them. I mean, even if she comes out clean on this, which it seems like she is, as far as I've read, um, it doesn't necessarily mean that her status is all of a sudden fine, and it's definitely done a number for her. I mean, we've not seen her publicly, I think, for the good year or two that the movie's come out. So it's just what it is, man, and it's still going on to this very day. And hopefully, this crap is over with soon, because man, it's just gone on for a long time. And I would like a resolution to this. And as unfortunate it is going to be as far as I've known about this case, as it being pretty much a tragic end. Um, I just think that it's just time to move on from this. You know, she is who she is. She's, as far as I can tell, a bit of a prick, and he may share similar characteristics. I don't know, but I think it's just best to move on at this point because it seems like a losing battle for him, as far as I've read. So, but let's move on from that. So, moving on from all the you know legal battles, from political conversations, let's move on to a different conversation, and that one involves superhero movies. Um, Now, you know, box office wise, we'll get into that in a second, but squarely talking about the genre itself, it has been a very trying time for this genre. As far, at least if you're asking me, no superhero films this year have really done great. I know people bring up Superman, but Superman really underperformed. It didn't necessarily make the company that much money. I think that they're hoping that the universe maybe just will build up and that Superman will be seen a little bit differently by that time when the other movies come out. And I don't think that you can bet on Supergirl to be the answer for that. I don't think Supergirl is the answer to that. I could be wrong, but I just don't think it is. And then, of course, we have all the Marvel films that came out this year, and none of which did anything. Captain America: Brave New World just didn't do much. Thunderbolts flopped. Fantastic Four really didn't do anything. It's been a very trying year, and I think that primarily it's to do with just material, and also it is fatigue. I know some people will combat that. They'll say, "Oh no, it's not fatigue." Look at films like Superman or the Batman. It's like when I say fatigue, I say this on a general level. Okay, like some characters will just sell on their own, right? Like a Batman, not really Superman, but Batman primarily speaking, he sells on his own. He doesn't require the genre itself to build him up. Other pieces do need that. And when you see the films standing on their own without the reliance of, you know, uh, notability, Batman is just notable on his own. People that we see here, they aren't as notable figures. So they have to work on the merit of them being superhero films. And they didn't. People didn't show up to these movies, and people have not been showing up to a lot of these movies. Last year, I mean, we had Deadpool and Wolverine, but again, it's familiarity. It's things that people are aware to that come to the theater. And maybe that's where things need to go in order for this genre to suffice. And next year, we will have some stuff like that. We'll have Spider Man, we'll have Avengers. Um, but there's worry there too that too much familiarity might also create boredom or create just a lack of interest. So it's just a lose-lose situation right now. It's also just with the times. It's just everything has a rise and a fall. We're just seeing the fall right now, and I doubt that next year will be a major push. I think that it will just further demonstrate that this genre is hurting, and that it's more reliant on familiarity than anything else. I mean, at least if you ask me. Now, obviously, we're just talking about the genre here. We're just talking about superheroes. Now, when we expand upon that conversation, this year has been troubling. Financially, it has been really, really troubling. Um, Now, we did a whole video on this. I did like an hour-long video on it. I mean, I will also admit up front, there are some movies here and there that I was wrong about. Namely, the one that I'm thinking of is the A24 list. I should have put Friendship as a positive. I looked back on that movie; it actually ended up doing a decent profit. Um, but my general view of it, I feel, is still intact. It's was mostly a down year. I mean, even a lot of these movies that you're seeing on screen, they didn't do well. Superman, as far as I know, as I've seen, didn't really do well. Snow White, we talked about, was a big flop. Avatar: Fire and Ash, we'll see. There's potential that it might not do the best. I mean, it's not going to do the $2 billion mark. That's been confirmed at least. Um, so we'll see where that ends up. Fantastic Four didn't do great. Wicked didn't do great. Ballerina didn't do great. Mission Impossible was a huge flop for Paramount. Jurassic World didn't really do all that great. Go watch my video if you want to see how I felt about that. Captain America didn't do great. F1 didn't do great. Thunderbolts didn't do great. Den of Thieves. It's been just a down year, and you know I've been tracking this similar with the genre, or mainly the superhero genre. I'll just say that I was tracking a lot of fatigue on that end, but we've been seeing a decline. You know, 2023 it's been kind of like this, and then a little bump, but ultimately it's going down. And there is a necessity more so nowadays to cater to audiences within the familiarity. We can't be relying upon certain kinds of content anymore, and also production needs to come down. Now, tariffs being an existing factor here uh, might put a damper on any of those types of plans. Trying to lower costs that might not be possible given what might be happening right now politically. Um, but it just doesn't do, because when you look at this list, also, most of these projects on here carry well over $200 million when you consider budget and marketing attached to it. And that's not good. And that's not good. When you have something that's well over $200 million, you should be hitting close to $1 billion. When you consider the ticket sales, when you consider the markets, the percentage cuts that go into it, these should all have been doing like close to $1 billion. And they didn't. They didn't. A lot of these didn't even come close. Avatar is the only one on this list that is coming close. We had other ones, of course, like Zootopia and Lilo and Stitch that ended up getting to those heights. But that doesn't make the year all of a sudden better. It just highlights a lot of unsatisfied consumers and a lot of people just not interested in going to the theater. And you got to meet with that, lowering the cost, lowering your lowering all those expenses, and catering to those audiences, doing familiarity. It's gonna make things a little bit more stabilized. But riding with the mentality that was with 2019, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not the same time as it once was. So kind of got to get with the times on this one. At least Hollywood has to. So, and then finally, of course, the biggest thing that happened this year. I mean, obviously, the biggest thing that happened this year. Oh no, sorry, my bad. Totally forgot about this. Um, the other major thing that happened this year, that actually this was before actually the other thing that happened, um, was Rush Hour 4. Um, Now, if you guys don't know, the reason why Rush Hour 4 exists is not because Paramount actually wanted to do the movie. It was actually because the Trump administration actually came in and essentially forced the studio to make that movie, because the director, Brett Ratner, who has been dealing with sexual allegations now for the past couple of years, which is the main reason why they didn't want to do the movie to begin with. He apparently did a documentary for Trump about his wife. That's, I guess, due to be released on Amazon sometime next year. I guess he enjoyed what he did, so and Brett Ratner was shopping around the movie for a little bit. Nobody wanted to bite. So Trump came in and said, I guess I'll help you because you made something for me. I guess I will help you in making yourself something. And we are, and I really don't like that is now in consideration, especially now with Paramount, which is funny because we'll get to the next thing, about Paramount. Um, but it sets a bad precedent for, decision makings, and, you know, he shouldn't have that jurisdiction. I get he is who he is, but it doesn't make it right. And it doesn't sit well that you're just forcing a studio to do something that they had no intentions to do. And they have no intentions on marketing it, they're only distributing it. So they don't have to, I don't know if they're financing it, I don't know if that's part of it. But I do know that they're not required to market it. So it's also Rush Hour. Like, who, I don't know who is clamoring for another Rush Hour. I guess they're maybe seeing it, at least the director is, maybe as like another Bad Boys type deal. But I don't think that's the same audience. So I feel like for the Trump administration to come in, I feel like it's an odd film to do. I get why, because of the person who was behind the movie, but just generally it's just an odd thing, and not something that needs to be occurring in the Hollywood system. And finally, I completely forgot about the story. And now, finally, of course, the biggest story that happened this year, obviously by far, is of course the Netflix and Warner Brothers merger. Of course, we talked about this a couple of times now. I did a few videos on this. Um, I am still really optimistic about what could happen. I know a lot of people are scared. A lot of people are trepidatious on what could happen to the Hollywood, Hollywood in general, I still echo a lot of what I have said. I don't think that one company's decisions is going to dictate everybody's. And I did a whole video about this, about the spirit of streaming, today, and the effects of like decisions that Warner Brothers has done on their end because of that. HBO Max doing their whole decision making there with, back in, what was it, 2021, releasing all their movies on streaming simultaneously to theaters, and seeing how that just blew up in their face. Probably still suffering the debt from that, as well as other movies now that are purely at that theatrical window. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden Hollywood's now going to burst in flames just because they decide to do something together. It doesn't mean that everybody else is going to follow suit. The major hitters to Hollywood right now, let's say, is AI. Which that was another big thing actually this year. Also, just to throw it in, a lot of AI developments this year, especially Disney. Disney, and their working with Sora. That's a big development too. I'll leave that story here too, so you guys can see that. Um, but but yeah, all the stories this year, this is definitely the biggest one. This has created the most conversations, the most discussions. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll see how this all goes through. We still have things to contend with. Obviously, Paramount came in and tried to do what they did not work. I heard they're still trying to do offers, but it seems at this point WB is pretty content with going with Netflix. And in my view, anyway, at least between the two, I think Netflix was probably the better choice. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to do good, because we've heard things about how they may be handling their theatrical slate, Warner Brothers' slate in the future. But we'll just have to wait and see. We'll see how it all is all executed in the future. So until things happen, it's purely speculation. So, but that is the year in a nutshell. It was a year of controversy. It was also a year of just diminishing returns and uncertainty about the future. So it wasn't necessarily the brightest year. It was a very, I guess, yeah, it was a very doubtful year. I guess that's the best word for it. Um, and hopefully more optimism, and hopefully more good is found next year. I have my worries still, just because the theatrical window is not the same. It's not the same as it once was. And I know people are still hoping that things will change, but it's really not. Um, and I think next year is just going to be a further illustration of that. It might be like 2024, where it's a little bit better, but it doesn't mean automatically everything now is just completely turned around. Um, so it's just a illustration of the times, and it's also an illustration of bad decision makings that were many, many years ago, studios, when it came to streaming. It's just all coming back now, and it's all crashing down. So we'll see. We shall see how 2026 performs. And you guys let me know. You guys let me know your thoughts in relation to 2025. What do you think were the biggest moments this year when it comes to film and Hollywood? Um, Let me know. Let me know all your thoughts, and your thoughts relating to 2026, your anticipations there. We are going to do a video about 2026, predicting, film wise, how films may perform next year. We'll be definitely doing a video on that. But let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.